Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The End Credits, the podcast where two brothers discuss their thoughts on a film of their choosing. I'm Dominic,
I'm Jonathan.
and today we are talking about Christopher Nolan's superhero film, The Dark Knight.
So I want to say basically right off the bat that I know in comparison to like the full trilogy, we haven't actually seen Rises, so I don't know. I'm not going to compare it to that one, but I'm going to compare it to the previous film, Batman Begins. And I don't know. I want to say that I found issues with The Dark Knight that I didn't find with Batman Begins.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's not like Dark Knight was like a bad film, right? And I know a lot of people regard it as like the best in the trilogy, but I want to say that there's more issues than Batman Begins, and we're gonna go along in this podcast and discover what at least I have issues with for this film. But I think overall, it's like a 70% bad in actuality and 30% good.
Oh man, okay.
So
for The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it might be surprising to some, but
Wow.
I'll explain as we go along.
Okay, yeah, I think, like my opinion, The Dark Knight actually made me really want to watch The Dark Knight Rises because first off, I haven't seen it, and but it did make me want to be honest. Like you though, I think I did find some bad things with this film, but we'll definitely get into that as we move along in the podcast.
The Dark Knight was directed by Christopher Nolan with a release date of July 18th, 2008. Had a runtime of 2 hours and 32 minutes, and the genre is a superhero. It stars Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Heath Ledger, and Gary Oldman. With the help of allies Lieutenant Jim Gordon and DA Harvey Dent, Batman has been able to keep a tight lid on crime in Gotham City. But when a vile young criminal calling himself the Joker suddenly throws the town into chaos, the Caped Crusader begins to tread a fine line between heroism and vigilantism.
Is Batman the hero or the vigilante at this point?
Right. I want to start off with just, like I said before, like, again, 70% bad, quote unquote, and 30% good. It's got to start, like, at the beginning, too, because with the beginning of this film, like, we were even talking about it when we were watching, like, I found myself, like, questioning, is this even Christopher Nolan directing the film? Because, like, it was so, I guess, different from, since we did a full series on Christopher Nolan. Like I feel like I was getting used to his like openings and stuff like that.
Right, like a style, yeah.
And I want to say like two major things really like prevented me from like thinking it's actually him, and that has to do with like just camera work and also like the pacing of it. So I'm gonna go into like the camera work first. Is like in this film, it's almost as if he wanted to like experiment a little bit, or I want to say like a little bit, like a lot in actuality.
Yeah.
But like I just found like here it is again. Maybe it's the first time actually where he used the widescreen to full screen idea,
Oh yeah.
And you saw that like in the beginning where like, you see shots of like cities and stuff like that. And then, when we get into the actual action, it might go into, widescreen. And like, again, just like we said for Interstellar, it's like, it's so jarring when you see it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely mentioned it too because it was, oh man, I don't know. I just couldn't help but notice it. And I was just like, why is this happening? There has to be a reason. And my idea was that, if we're switching back and forth, it's just about having to focus in more on the widescreen version. I don't know. Maybe that helps like psychologically, and maybe it did, and I didn't even notice as we were watching. But I don't know. I think the result is jarring.
Yeah, and I think even if it was to like affect, certain emotions with this, I don't know. It's just like it was too frequent, and it never really like. Again, you just noticed it more in here than I feel like in Interstellar in comparison, and maybe because it was his like learning moments. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to say because like obviously he's obviously a more skilled director than we both are.
Right.
But I don't know. It was very like off putting, and I even want to like move on to like even the cuts weren't as smooth before.
No,
Like
I don't know. Yeah,
it
no.
was like okay, we went to here, then cut to some other moment in time, and it's like whoa, it's like what happened there?
It felt very abrupt. I will say that I almost felt like, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit, that you almost felt like it didn't feel like Christopher Nolan. And it definitely felt like a deviation from Batman Begins. I will say that. It felt much slower, felt like editing was at the right like pace. And as you were saying, it felt like this one was just taking abrupt cuts in weird places.
Right.
And we would make these shifts. And it almost felt like, again, with this idea of Christopher Nolan being the kind of director, or I guess the kind of director he's become, is that kind of like blockbuster, that name that everyone knows, and the kind of style that people expect from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really it's playing into just how like a movie goers watch films now, or like in the typical modern audience. I feel like The Dark Knight is one of those films that feels like it fits that mold of the average moviegoer. And I feel like he was kind of almost, it feels like almost like a sacrifice of his own style and maybe some of his like own integrity as just like a filmmaker to
Okay.
make it feel like anyone, like the average moviegoer, could just like pick it up, watch it, and understand it all and really enjoy it.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, like uh with Batman Begins, I feel like we had a little bit more time to like digest little things.
Yeah,
And
I
here
agree.
it's like, yeah, it's just quick pace and just different camera stuff like at different times. Like I actually wrote some stuff down that I actually want to like talk about when it comes to like certain areas where I like, okay, this is something to talk about. Like even like the whole circle thing where he circles around the characters at different scenes, and it's like he does it like three,
Three times.
four times. I don't even know. Like I get the idea, like, okay, maybe we're supposed to create some intensity moment like of the circle around, but man, was I getting dizzy every single
Yeah.
time that was happening. And again, maybe it was a good thing for like 2008, but like I don't know. I wanted to like I wanted to slow down and understand the world as if we were in Batman Begins, because
Mhm.
we got to discover what Gotham was, and I get that this is after the fact, right? So we don't really need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like we didn't get a chance to like build where we are in this new Gotham with Batman around constantly,
Mhm.
and instead we were like, okay, this happened, Harvey's here, and now everything's taking place during the daytime because the criminals are afraid to go out at night. Like we did get the bare bones gist of it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But like again, I feel as if we needed more time to really like understand the whole importance to why this truly mattered, because it's easy for somebody to just miss it, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Like if this was watching your first time, you might not even caught those, key
Right.
details.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that, and I even mentioned it when we were watching as well. It could be a thing where Christopher Nolan was simply making these changes and trying out these different styles and techniques. It could have been for the fact to make it distinct from Batman Begins. And if that's the case, then I think it works in that sense. Um, because like you were saying, like with like the 360 camera shot, like we didn't see any of that in Batman Begins. But just like maybe just like playing into the idea that we're just it needs to be kind of like quicker pace and it needs to be fast in order to be distinct from Batman Begins. So a complete shift in not only night and day scenes, because like Batman Begins, we hardly had any day scenes, and then it was, I even mentioned it too. as we were watching The Dark Knight that it was almost like a little bit jarring when you compare The Dark Knight to Batman Begins, because The Dark Knight opens with the day scene. So it was kind of like refreshing, and it was different, and it was distinct from, apart from Batman Begins. So if that were the case, if that was the idea, the intent, then I think they did. I think they accomplished that to make it absolutely distinct from that first film.
I get the whole night and day scene, and that again that makes sense. I'm not gonna like say that was the wrong choice or whatnot. I just think that like I don't know, it seemed to overcomplicate things for no reason, just to be different.
Yeah,
For example,
sure.
like when we do get into like the Joker and all these other people that are basically Gotham criminals or whatnot, right? They come up with like plans or whatnot, and this main guy leaves to like China, I believe,
Yeah,
and Batman has to go all the way over there. Like, why? Why do we have this overcomplicated plot of like all this money being, constantly chased around Gotham, eventually across the world, and then Batman goes all the way over there? Why did we have to write this in the entire movie? It was like it only seemed to only be there just so that Harvey could, at the end of the thing, capture 500 criminals. Just to build up that Harvey's some,
he's the White Knight of
right.
Gotham.
And I'm like, did we really need 500? Could we have gone to like 10? Why did we overcomplicate the scale of this movie when we didn't need to?
Hmm.
Like,
Good point. Good point.
in comparison to like Batman Begins, we do have two main, villains with like Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
We didn't even know what was really happening until basically the end of like, okay, it was going to go towards that way. But in this one, we're like, okay, we set up that at the end of the other movie, it's Joker's time, and
Right.
we're going to build Joker. But then they also wanted to build a secondary one with Harvey Dent, becoming Two-Face or whatnot.
Sure.
But basically, I think that for some reason that pairing didn't work as neatly as Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul, only because I feel as if maybe we didn't understand both scenarios to like a realistic degree, where okay, here's this with Scarecrow, he's like a doctor over at Arkham Asylum or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think we understood his corruption deal a whole lot easier, right? And then Ra's al Ghul, with the League of Shadows and all that. But with like Joker and Harvey Dent, they wanted to build each to like, okay, what were their motives and how they, arrived to Gotham. But, again, we overcomplicated Harvey's whole deal with, 500, whatever criminals.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, even with the Joker, we try to do this like high stakes, intro scene with like him expertly, or cleverly, going around all these other, bad guys and just throw them away. And sure, it looks cool, it's like a huge spectacle. But again, I just feel as if like it just overcomplicates for just the sake of overcomplicating the plot, because again, at the end of the day, we still get to like the places, but like I don't know. I just wanted in comparison to the other one, I wanted it to feel more meaningful, because by the end, you didn't really need
Right.
those things to get there.
Yeah, I agree, because I would definitely say that Batman Begins was much more clever than The Dark Knight. And I think a lot has to do with just because it was set in such a realistic way, and I felt like The Dark Knight probably took a little bit of liberties to. I mean, we're still in the realistic, sure, but I think maybe we're just getting a little bit more, not cartoony, but I would say that we're just taking a little bit more like risk to take. Or here, let me put it this way: I think that The Dark Knight made sacrifices not for the sake of just overcomplicating the plot, like you said. I think they made those sacrifices, or they made those decisions for the sake of making it something that the average moviegoer can go watch and see. And there's not a whole lot of meaning to it. And let's face it, those kind of films that just like the average moviegoer goer like watches, it's really all about the action. It's something that can like really keep people like there. It's not so much about story and everything. Not saying that the Dark Knight doesn't focus in on some, you know, plot points, because I think they do better than most, like movies today. But I will say that I felt like, again, how, as I was saying earlier, I just kind of felt like the Dark Knight became more of a blockbuster than what Batman Begins was. And I think the times really reflect that too, because it was just different. And the idea of what a movie could be in that time, it changes.
It's just weird because again, going back to what I said, like 70% of this movie I feel is bad, but 30% is good.
Hmm.
Because I really do believe that like the big chunk in the beginning is bad, and we don't really get good stuff or good, I guess, quality stuff until the end. Which I don't know if it was like a intentional thing, or like, okay, at this moment let's just actually go for it. Because if anything, I feel as if, like I said, the last 30% of the movie could be a Batman Begins start.
Oh,
Like that's
yeah.
where the Batman, it should be in Batman Begins.
It should have started
Realm,
there.
right? And the first 30 is like, or the first 70 is like, let's just go action. Do certain scenes, and
uh,
let's just do some cool technological leap that we can do at this moment in time. It's like,
yeah.
okay, well, sure.
Like, what's the next thing that we can do to like impress people and keep them
Right.
invested? It's those little moments where I feel like it just kind of for the sake of giving people like a, just a spectacle for a moment,
Right.
and then sprinkle a little story here, and then sprinkle a little story here. Oh, we need another spectacle moment to keep people invested and happy. So I will say that I think the main, one of the greatest things about this film is Heath Ledger as the Joker. I will say that he's probably their one, like as the Joker put it, like ace in the hole. Like I feel like it's that one really great thing about this film that is definitely going to keep people there. Is just his performance, as everyone has like said constantly about this film. Everyone always talks about the Heath Ledger portrayal of Joker, and I think that with that, it really his performance keeps people there. He is part of that spectacle, in my opinion. That like when people get bored of like story plotline stuff, Joker steps in and people get invested again.
I think that
I'm not saying I did, but I'm just saying that most people will.
no, hear me out. So I think for this is Joker. So
Okay.
yes, he is. Heath Ledger is. His performance is outmatched. He steals the show. Okay. Second is, this is actually probably for me the closest that Hollywood movies will ever get to the perfect villain.
Hmm.
The closest. And it's what's disappointing though is that I think that, or at least I feel as if most people actually don't actually truly understand
Yeah.
the hype because of how he interacts with people and what he says in certain moments. Basically, I want to dispute if the Joker's truly like an agent of chaos, which I don't actually truly believe.
Yeah.
And I don't think he even truly believes Heath Ledger's Joker isn't that, because if we do like go into that scene, I think it's more. Well, he even explains it later because he tries to push Harvey Dent into that realm, because he basically just tells him what he needs to hear in order
Yeah.
to push him further, right?
Right.
And the Joker doesn't truly believe any of that, okay? And the Joker does plan; he is a schemer and whatnot. And in this version of the Joker, it seems like his whole thing is he doesn't like, I guess, BS type of stuff. He wants to be more straightforward, and he acts as if like, why live in a world where you're not true to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to expose people to that, and he inherently believes that people are evil, and so again, he's exposing people to that evil side, and that's why he has this whole, basically, by the end with the two ships trying to basically, oh, should I blow up the other or whatnot.
Mm.
And yeah, that's basically what his Joker is, I guess, misunderstood to be, because he does have some sort of reason here. I want to basically read out what I have.
Well,
And he does basically have, he doesn't do stuff for the sake of, like the quote of, some men just want to watch the world burn. That's not the Joker. I don't believe that's true to what his thing is, or at least Heath Ledger's version of it.
okay.
And I guess what the ironic thing is supposed to be with the Joker is that, he inherently believes, at least his version, right?
Sure.
He inherently believes people are evil, yet he projects this happy, good persona, even though that's technically not what he is either.
Right, exactly. I think I would probably say I don't know if I agree with you when you say that the Joker believes that people are evil. I think he just believes people are weak. But I don't think he believes that they're evil. Basically that they're weak, and then that weakness will lead them to do bad things. But not that they're evil. I think that he understands the mind, and he understands how weak and fragile people can be.
Mm-hmm.
So he pushes those people to that limit, to their breaking point, where they commit unjust bad things. But I don't really think that he believes that they're evil, just that they're more so that they just can't handle the real world.
I would argue against, only because he seemed at the end shocked that they didn't blow themselves up, because he believes that because you could argue, then why doesn't he push them towards the other way around if it's just a weak side? He just believes that people basically act as if they're good, right? But in actuality, they have, I guess, dark tendencies, or want to do things that are against societal stuff, right?
Sure. Okay.
And he basically wants to expose people to that this is what they actually are, and not these good civil people, that they claim to be.
Right. And I guess maybe for me, I consider that the weakness. That's what I call it.
Okay.
That like the exposing the weakness, that being the like the rules and the customs that people follow in society.
Uh-huh.
So he's exposing those weaknesses to them. I guess I just don't call it like evil or like dark tendencies. It's just more like, I think that people want to be good, and they want to be like a good person, like as society tells us to be. And I think that, he's just exposing like those weaknesses or those like lies, but I guess I just don't necessarily call it an evil.
Well, technically, so yeah, I guess for me, that's how I think the Joker operates, and that's what the overall like message of the movie, where Batman steps in, and it's supposed to tell us that no, we're actually good people, and we do, have some value in our structure, right? And that's how like they're supposed to be like the reverse side of each other,
Right.
Quote unquote. And yeah, that's why I tend to lead towards the evil, quote unquote, ness, because I think that I think it's a little bit, he's a little bit more childish than just saying quote unquote weak, because yes, he thinks that he is better than people are, but like I guess his villain side, quote unquote, wants to say that he's bad because he always brings up these things about his scars, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it has to do with how he was, quote unquote, brought up, and he believes that people will do bad things just because of the sake of bad things, and that's more or less where that's where the evil comes in.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I want to go against weak, because I think it's more than that, because Batman has to be the reverse side, in my opinion,
Okay.
for it.
Okay. Yeah, I do like how you brought up like the moments when he talks about like his scars because he brings them up quite frequently, and he
Right.
always changes the story too. So it's clear that he doesn't have just one single story. He always like changes it based on said person or like event.
Right.
And see, I guess in my like view, because that first time we can't really like accept his like stories as true because obviously he changes it. Um, but like even he talked about that very first time with his father. I didn't he mention something about like his father would drink or something, and then he would yell at his mom, and then he was hitting her and whatnot.
Mhm.
See, I think he's talking about like those things where he's saying like there's the weakness in people. Like my father was an alcoholic. He wasn't fully conscious and fully aware. He starts giving in to those like pressures and everything, and then he does bad things. So I like that's why I'm saying that overall it feels more like a weakness that something takes him to that place and he's letting people know about those things. I feel like it's always about some kind of weakness that exists there within somebody. But I like again, I just don't know if it's necessarily an evil, but
I can totally see where you get the weak thing because it's totally understandable with like having the people fall towards like I guess bad or whatnot, right? But I don't know. I guess I question to like um, I guess wouldn't it, like his overall goal is for me to like go show people that they are bad because if his overall goal is to show people that they're weak, I feel as if in his findings he'd find somebody who's not, and I guess you could say quote unquote that's Batman. He's strong or whatnot, but I guess I guess you could have found. It seems more convenient. I guess you could say the other thing is too with even with good versus bad that
Right.
you'd find some good person, right?
yeah,
And they obviously did with the boats.
sure. Yeah.
So I think it could be like a mixture of both. To be honest,
It probably is a mixture because I guess like with the weakness, it can also be considered an evil and vice versa. And even Joker mentions it like for a brief moment at the very end when he says something to Batman about like for whatever reason, like he basically like admitting that he can't like make him think the same way as he does,
Mhm.
and because of some kind of like ritualistic goodness or something that he mentions, something like those lines. So that's probably something to take note of.
Yeah. I do want to like also go into like what we both believe like the Joker to be because it could be different from his portrayal of the Joker.
Uh-huh.
I do want to say like in my vision it's a little bit more it's similar but like it's more tied to his like obsession with Batman because I feel like everything that Joker does is driven because of Batman and it's more in the sense of like he's bored and Batman gives him this like sort of I guess different and this is interesting to him and it's different from your normal society, so he's like, oh, living the life and who is this guy and because I feel as if it's similar to the fact where uh, why live life if it's not interesting,
Sure.
in that realm,
Yeah.
rather than, people are, inherently bad or whatever, I think for Heath Ledger just to be, it's more on the lines on, let's live a little, quote unquote, right? And then Batman in that sense is, being his true self, living life, to the, fullest, quote unquote. And so the Joker, I guess, kind of forgets his whole thing and like tries to like who is this or kind of like that he understands that this is makes his life interesting and I'm supposed to be the other part, quote unquote, and
Yeah.
driving to that insane area
Yeah.
side of him.
I always like when I hear the like that similar line of like that they're destined to do this forever because you know
Yeah.
that it's going to, and that's kind of like Similar to what you're saying about how, yeah, Joker is kind of like the other side of Batman and vice versa. And like with that, it is going to lead them to, you know, do this till the end of time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would feel like, I would say that Heath Ledger's Joker is one that is like obsessed with Batman. And that's the right place to be, I think.
I'd actually disagree. I think his is actually not as
Oh,
obsessed
you
as I
think?
want. I think
Oh,
it's supposed to be
okay.
more.
Oh, more so.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You think it's too far into like just like
I
giving into like the weaknesses or the evil of people?
I don't think it's too far. I think it's a good, villain quote unquote trait to have. But I think the Joker is more into this, boredom where he obsessed with Batman, and that's
This
what.
this version of
No,
Joker,
no,
or
no,
just
no,
Joker
no.
in general?
Just Joker in general.
Oh,
I'm talking about my thoughts on what I think Joker to be,
Oh,
and just comparing it into how Heath Ledger's or how I think Heath Ledger's Joker is supposed to be portrayed.
okay.
So I like, do you think Joker is supposed to be this way that Heath Ledger portrays, or is it like,
Hmm.
did you think Joker is something else? Because people interpret his character, completely different in different ways. I didn't know if you had some other thing like, oh, this is what Joker is actually, or something.
Oh, like what he's all about. Yeah, I think I would say that I don't know. I guess I treat different like versions, especially like the portrayals of the Joker. I just treat them in different like in a different view than I do for like just general Joker. I will say that I think general Joker in my head is different than the Heath Ledger version, but I don't think the Heath Ledger version is bad.
Right, right.
I think that this one is a little bit more like grittier. Obviously, there are versions of the Joker which are more grittier,
Hmm.
so he falls in the line of the gritty, the dark, the very manipulative, probably not as fun and maybe not as charismatic as you normally would see the Joker, like for example in the animated series of Batman.
Hmm.
But I think, with this kind of film, it works and he's not meant to be so cartoony. I think he is. I think the obsession with Batman came through for me personally.
Oh, okay.
And I felt like it was enough. Maybe we could have used some more, but I felt like that the whole idea with like trying to bait him on the TV with like killing the other imposter Batmans like on TV, like that was a clear that was a clear obsession, even to the point when like he was even planning to just like kill Batman in order to well, as he put it, so that way like crime could continue again. Um, like those like different things. Basically, like it felt like throughout the entire movie, he was just trying to lure Batman out, and I felt that his obsession come through.
Yeah, yes and no. And in the same way, I think with those two examples is they're kind of like contradictory because it I guess this is why I think his obsession wasn't to the heights like I thought it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Only because like, okay, it didn't make sense to me that okay, at the beginning he's like, okay, we gotta kill Batman, which yes, sure he'll say that or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And then he comes up with this like whole deal to like, oh, find out who he is or whatnot. And
Yeah.
in that sense, I don't know if he should have went that far. I think it does make more sense that he wanted to conceal his identity because I don't think he really cares. But when he went to the other side, where he needs to remove his mask and he made like death threats because of that. That didn't make sense to me, and that's what I was like, okay, this is not the obsessive Joker as I
Oh.
think it's supposed to be.
Oh, okay. I see. So, okay. So probably just like didn't line up with maybe how he was originally, like what his goal was really, because
Yeah,
did he have to kill those people?
Right. It seemed very like flip flop, which
okay.
You could just say, oh, it's insanity maybe or whatnot, but
Sure.
it seemed inconsistent for like a character. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it was intentional.
Maybe it
Who knows?
was, right?
I do also let's go to like obviously Batman, right?
Yeah.
And I gotta say, first off, what did they do to Batman? He completely changed from Batman Begins, in my opinion. In my opinion.
How so?
Because so in this movie, he has this like basically he brings up this whole Rachel relationship, right?
Oh yeah.
And I thought at the end of Batman Begins, we established he's Batman, and this is what he's gonna do now. And he's gonna save Gotham or whatnot. But then in this movie, he completely sidetracks. Like, no, 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 I gotta get Rachel back. And he does things that it doesn't make sense to what his other form would have done. Because like, okay, yes, we had this relationship, but I thought again before we were supposed to like, okay, we know he can't have it. That's the whole downfall burden, quote unquote,
Sure.
just like
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
yeah.
And in this one, he's like throwing, let's just throw the Batman suit away. Let's go get Rachel.
Yeah, I will agree that Batman Begins certainly established that Bruce understood his position and his place. Both him and Rachel understood, right? And it was strange that it kind of felt like, it almost seemed like he was kind of stalking Harvey Dent for the sake of Rachel and seeing like what the relationship was like. And even Alfred mentioned it.
Mhm.
I do want to mention though, do we actually know how long it's been between the events of Begins and The Dark Knight? Do we know how much time has passed?
I don't
Excuse me.
believe.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I don't know if we know how much time has passed because depending on like how long it's been, because even Bruce brings up quite a bit. He's like, 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 oh, remember what the day that I told you about if Gotham didn't need Gotham didn't need Batman. Well, that time is here. It's come, or it's coming because Harvey Dent is here.
Mhm.
He's Gotham's White Knight, and he can do it all without a mask. And so I guess in my head when I was watching, I kind of felt like the just time had passed, but it still felt strange that he felt almost like it needed to be urgent. Like he was almost kind of
Right.
rushing it. And what I liked about this, even though we obviously knew that Rachel Dawes, the actor had changed,
Right.
which was a little strange. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's besides the point. What I really liked about this part was that Rachel still, in that moment anyway, still felt like she was the smarter one out of the two and saying like, there's no need to rush this yet. Let's think about this a little more. And I guess maybe in my head I was just like, well, we don't know how much time has passed, but still, would Bruce Wayne really react like that, especially when it felt like he really understood where he needed to be
Mhm.
clearly, and like no matter how much time had passed, he still would have known where he sat with that and the decision that they came to. So I guess like even with time, it wouldn't have excused that.
I guess I just go into like I just think of it more on like film writing or whatnot. Like why write this? Why write into this? Right. Why write it this way? Here's another example of like it just overcomplicates a plot that's already overcomplicated. For no reason. And I understand like I understand the desire for your main hero to undergo this change through the hero's journey or whatnot, because all structures are most likely influenced by that, right?
Yeah,
I
in some
understand,
way.
I understand the need,
Yeah.
but this is why we have different characters in movies.
Yeah.
Our main hero already learned his stuff in
Yeah.
Batman Begins. Let's use our villain. Let's use our supporting characters. Let's use our other people there
Yeah.
to tell those heroes' journey stories rather than Batman, because he already learned it.
Yeah.
Let's continue from what we established. And that's not remove and change completely what he already did. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Because it almost seemed like like his flaws returned. It almost
Right.
seemed like we brought back the flaws that, like you said, he already learned in Batman Begins. So
Right.
why are we going through all of this when it should have been, or it was established
Yeah.
in The Dark Knight or the Batman Begins? Excuse me.
Yeah, let's just use that time to establish who Joker was or Harvey Dent was, and instead we wasted time for no reason.
Yeah. That's a good point to bring up because I felt like I didn't even notice that. I did notice a change in Bruce Wayne. Don't get me wrong. I totally noticed it. But I guess I probably didn't go to the fact of like, thinking to Batman Begins and thinking how different he is from that film. I guess I kind of felt like it was just like slight, changes where it felt like, well, I guess I did kind of think about it because I did think about it in terms of just Bruce Wayne and not necessarily Batman. I thought about it more of like when he was making like deals with a different company. It kind of felt like he was being reckless again. But was he really? Then it did show that like he had a plan all along and everything. So then I was like, okay, those are things that obviously Bruce Wayne is smart and he's playing up the character of Bruce Wayne. I guess I maybe didn't think much about Batman's side and thinking about like, what happened.
Yeah, I'm just saying this only because like by the end he becomes this like stable rock and he's back to Batman Begins form.
Yeah,
and I'm just saying like he should have been that stable iron
throughout
rock
the entire film.
Yeah, throughout the entire film. It didn't make in my opinion it didn't make sense, but
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah,
whatever. Also, it's like I did want to talk about like just locations in general and just how Gotham is.
Okay,
Like. So basically, again, here's like another contrast between The Dark Knight and Batman Begins. In Batman Begins, I felt we understood what Gotham was. We had certain locations like Arkham Asylum. We had the Gotham slums. We had Wayne Manor, and all this whole elaborate city.
We had Falcone's like hideout.
Right, Falcone's hideout.
We had the Batcave.
The Batcave. But in this one, we don't see any of it. It's just random building, random hospital, random street corner. It's like, where did the character of Gotham go? It's like the only character is really, Joker in this whole movie. And it's like, what happened? We established so much in the foundation of Batman Begins, and for some reason we lost it.
Yeah, there was a sense of like or loss of the sense of character. Like we talked about it before, I almost kind of like didn't understand what you were trying to get at first, and now that I think about it, it's like we lost the sense of like you could almost like shut your eyes and think about the locations in Batman Begins, and you can actually picture them right in your head because they were established well, and then in The Dark Knight, you just kind of look at it and you close your eyes and you're like, okay, where was this again?
Right,
and I feel like, again, maybe I'm just like, I feel like, as I said before, for this film, it feels like it's for the average moviegoer. It's meant to like, we're moving from place to place, and we don't even stay in a place too long in this film.
Right.
We move quite a bit, and it's not, we don't have a lot of time to stay in one place. So I think that probably like led to the feeling of like, oh, here we are here. It feels like that thing where you see like in movies nowadays, for whatever reason, it's like we're in one place, like we're in one country, and then the next scene we're in another country, and then we're in another country. And it's like we can't stop like the movement from location to location. It's like, it's not going to hurt you if we stay in one location and we really get a sense of it. And I think Batman Begins did that very well, and which is why I say that Batman Begins is the better film overall, in my opinion, like in the trilogy.
Yep.
And I feel like it's underrated for that matter. But yeah, like the locations just feel like almost like 2D, if that's like the way to describe it, or like really plain.
Okay.
And almost like when we see like the new like Batcave or like the temporary Batcave, even as I was watching The Dark Knight, I was thinking to myself, whoa, why is it so like empty and why is it so plain? I do like the wall though, like the ceiling, I should say.
Oh yeah, the ceiling looks nice.
The ceiling looks nice. It's a really cool touch. Gives me like 2001: A Space Odyssey vibes. Like it's very like clean yet dirty. And I was thinking to myself, like, whoa, what happened? But then I remember that Wayne Manor is still being rebuilt, so we'd never actually got to see like the Batcave again.
Right.
But it just kind of felt like a sacrifice. Like, couldn't we just skip ahead to when it's rebuilt?
It's like, especially since we're establishing that time has passed. It's like, what happened? We could just skip to a new Batcave or whatnot.
Yeah.
And we just go to some location that could be literally any action movie.
Yeah.
This is our base or whatnot. It's like, serious? It's like, what happened?
I don't know. I completely agree. The location was like missing in this one. The character, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
I do also want to go into Harvey Dent's character and like the fall of him and becoming Two-Faced, and I actually kind of like this whole like downfall of him.
I do too. Yeah,
and it establishes he could be it's just another Batman villain that you know or whatnot.
Yeah,
like that's kind of cool.
Like to see the progression.
Yeah, and I guess that the fact that he was out in the open and we didn't really see those type of people when it came to Batman Begins because everybody around Gotham was corrupt, and we still carried those ideas into Dark Knight. And, Harvey brings it up all the time. Like, you can't trust these men because, they were the same men who were corrupted, whatever.
Yeah, years ago. Yeah.
And
so why don't we carry that over and not anything else?
See, here's another thing where, like, your first time viewing, you could have completely missed that.
Yeah.
And that was a huge point in this movie with Harvey Dent's character and how he ends up with Rachel. And, again, I don't think I understood that the first time I watched Dark Knight. And
really?
When I watched it now, I was like, oh, okay, now this all makes sense.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it all pieced together with Batman Begins. Because it all was supposed to connect, but it's so, like, minuscule and so, not brought to the forefront with everything else going on.
Yeah.
That it's an easy thing to miss.
Yeah, it's, like, easy to just gloss over.
Yeah, it's like, oh, man. There's some essence, there still, besides like, the 500, criminals there,
but
which
not,
is
not enough.
It
did seem kind of like ridiculous. And at that point, it almost kind of felt cartoony, With Harvey Dent, though, I do want to ask, do you feel like he came off like too strong, like in the opening? Do you feel like his character felt just not like, obviously, like, yes, he's a strong opposing figure to be considered the White Knight of Gotham, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's something to be reckoned with. But I just felt like I'm not talking about the character at this point. I guess I'm referring more to like the acting, and maybe that was the point, and it did come off strong, but that was the point.
Yeah.
But like it felt a little too strong. Or and is that just me, or did you feel that way?
Too like
clean, maybe?
Yeah, clean, convenient. It's like there's like nothing, like. Yeah, you get the sense in like
he's not afraid of anything. It's like like the good guy.
It's a little I don't know, cheesy. Like maybe because again we've already seen this film before, so we know it's supposed to lead.
Yeah,
it didn't seem as genuine as like a good guy, doing the right thing as like a Clark Kent from Superman.
Right.
It wasn't the same delivery because
exactly.
I feel like you said, with this good persona with Harvey Dent, I feel like when he turned to Two-Faced, it made a lot more sense and it felt a lot more genuine in that form of him.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like it was just, especially in the opening, it felt like just too convenient.
Right. Yeah.
Too convenient.
Totally, I understand.
Yeah, and again, like if we go with Batman Begins, it just felt like we didn't really have a lot of moments with convenience, maybe except for Lucius, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like with The Dark Knight, it just felt like the characters just felt too convenient. It's like, oh, this person's just like not scared of anybody. He's gonna take on like all these mob people and all those gangs and all those like all the people, and it just kind of felt like like, oh yeah, I can take it. It just felt maybe just too like unrealistic, I suppose.
Yeah, but I guess like the the saddest part, seeing him and Rachel or whatnot.
Yeah,
what happened with them. And him screaming, I was like, "Oh man, that sucks."
It was devastating.
Yeah,
the moment when they're both tied up, and they're in their their respective places where they were like kidnapped, right? And with the gas tanks, and man, it was devastating. I didn't realize how devastating it was until like
I agree
when Batman said that he was going after Rachel, but then when he ends up like opening the door and he sees Harvey, and then Harvey sees Batman. And then he starts screaming like, you chose the wrong person. I was like, man, that really like hit me in another way this time that it never has before. And man, that was a strong moment. That was a really good moment and an upsetting one for sure. And yeah, oh man.
Yeah, like also like going into that scene, where Batman, goes and sees Harvey. See, here's another thing where the first time I watched it, I didn't understand this part because again, stuff was just going too fast and you didn't understand certain things. But when I watched it in this time, I was like, okay, here's another thing to disprove, Joker's not this agent of chaos. He made calculated moves.
Okay.
He purposely told Batman the wrong location, and he swapped the locations because he knew that he would go over to Rachel, and he went to Harvey's instead. I always thought that Batman went to Harvey even though he said he was going to Rachel, so he let her go because whatever, right? I always thought that, but no, Joker, he switched the locations.
Just I'm gonna admit right now I was today's years old when I realized that was the purpose.
Oh.
I never realized that Joker
Oh, man.
had switched the locations.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
a
man.
brilliant plan because he knew.
Man. Oh man, I just
See?
clicked right now.
There you go.
It was too fast.
There you go.
I'll admit that it was like way too fast at the way the way that they like the way that was like approached, because even when I was watching, I was like, wait a minute, when did they ever say, like, did Gordon and Batman ever tell themselves? Because when Batman left, he said that he was going after Rachel, and then Gordon after the second place. So then I was thinking, but wait, was there a point when they said, all right, just like switch? But so Joker made the switch,
Yeah, he knew that Batman would get there in time, and he knew the cops couldn't get there in time.
right?
Or he knew, the Batman would be faster, obviously.
Right, yeah.
And so he needed to his whole goal was to, basically have Dent, become bad or fall like them, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
And so he knew he needed him alive, so he sent Batman to him, technically.
Right. See, like, yeah, everything was just like too fast, even in that moment when we had the interrogation scene, which is a very popular scene.
Yeah.
But it's like, as good of a scene as that was, it's like you're still just losing something, or you can lose things. And see, I felt like Batman Begins didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't do that.
Yeah, it's like, see, just those little things, because of the pacing, just how stuff's like, should I care about this or should I care about this? It's like, it's not very clear, just because, again, we're moving to, there's all these moving parts, again, just for, again, we don't even know the reason, right? Because it's just overcomplicated, and, people miss these things, and Batman Begins just did a better job, and like, okay, here's, where we're going, and this is the payoff, with like Ra's al Ghul, basically, you know, we understood the moments, when he basically came together against him at the end with Ra's.
Yeah.
And this one, we just didn't understand because there were certain, things just happening all at once. And I see, we just learn new things every day.
I did not even know that he switched them, and now it all makes sense. Man, didn't even catch that. Oh, no. Well, at least I didn't mishear a line or anything like that. At least it was just, I just missed the fact that he switched those locations. That makes a lot more sense. With Harvey Dent, I was sad to see him like turn to the dark side, if we want to call it, And it was kind of like when I was watching that moment when Joker's like kind of like talking with him and like kind of giving him that push to, take him there, to take Harvey Dent there. It was like, man, Joker kind of has a point right here, and he convinced him in such a good way. But it was just sad that, it was sad that Harvey went there, but Joker definitely knew what to say to him, especially with the loss of Rachel. I just couldn't have imagined with like Harvey like having to deal with the Joker like right there when he knew that he was responsible, or at least he knew, and then I guess like Joker just kind of convinced him that he wasn't.
Well, he knew. It was just, he basically, all his stuff that he tells Harvey is just quote unquote BS, or he made it, so
he made up another story.
Yeah, so he could go with there. And I was like, I just sad to see him turn to this whatever maneuver. But essentially, I gotta admit that, Harvey gains character, quote unquote.
He does.
Turning to the dark side, with his whole Two-Face, with the flip of the coin and everything.
He definitely has more of like an edge to him, And I like how they do establish the whole like, the luck thing with the two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
They established that a little bit earlier, but it definitely takes on a whole nother meaning once he turns into Two-Face finally.
Right.
I don't know though. It almost kind of felt like, he does develop this other kind of character, but it almost kind of felt like he wasn't fully there. And and honestly, maybe that's the point.
But he didn't even have enough time.
Yeah.
Really, technically.
Right. Exactly.
It's not like originally we thought that Scarecrow and Batman Begins was into the height.
Oh.
It's just, again, it's not like that. It's just Harvey didn't have enough time to develop that Two-Face character, because again, he wasn't there the whole movie as that version of him.
Yeah. I guess in some ways, I wasn't surprised that like he went to that that level. I guess it was just like sad to see him get there, especially since I've seen this
Yeah.
movie already. But it was like, oh man, now Batman has someone else to worry about.
Right. And especially like intense when, when we do get to like that final scene with him taking Commissioner Gordon's family.
Oh yeah,
Like, oh man, I don't want to watch this. I was like, oh man.
that was another moment too where it just kind of felt like just like a gut wrenching moment when he takes Gordon's family. Oh man,
Yeah. Never would love. No, I never want to be in that position. Like,
Yeah,
never.
I know. It was a tough scene to watch. I'll admit. Like, it was definitely one of those. See, again, I think one of those scenes where you kind of just like forget about, but then you see it again, and you're like, oh man, that was a lot worse than I. Not like bad, but it was definitely like an impactful scene, and he was definitely going to it on a whole nother level. How did you feel about like when like returning to Batman? How did you feel about the fact that he had to kind of take the fall for Harvey? And
It was good. I think it was easily the best. Okay, we're back at Batman again.
Yeah,
I was like
right.
easily like the best moment. Oh yeah, we need. In some ways, we go back to Memento. Where do we lie just to be happy or whatnot? It's like it all stems from there. But forget about that. So yeah, no. He takes the fall for him, and it's such a heroic thing. It's such an epic thing. This is what makes you want to watch the next movie, right? What happened to him? What's happening? What's going on? And stuff like that.
But again, this is where Batman should have been the very beginning of the film, not at the end.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, definitely taking the fall. I'm not even gonna try to say the line with the hero they need or whatever because I'm gonna flip it. Just watch the movie and you'll know the line.
Right.
But yeah, definitely a heroic moment. Batman basically, sacrificing himself for the greater good.
See, this is why I say that like 70% of this movie is bad, while 30% is good, because like this ending stuff is where we really get to like, okay, what really happens and how this all matters, and his whole meaning for Batman and everything like that, and what a hero can be, and what a villain who understands, or like what heights he can go if he's clever enough to push the boundaries, and that's where that 30% is. But like when we get how we get there, it's like, oh, it's kind of dreadful.
Like the other 70%.
Oh man.
So there we have it. Christopher Nolan's superhero film, The Dark Knight. We hope you enjoyed listening and watching this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The End Credits. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The End Credits Podcast, and over on Twitter at The End Credits. If you're watching the video version, make sure to subscribe to the End Credits YouTube channel. That's it. Thank you and goodbye.